untouched by civilization, by technology. Places very much the same today as they were 200 years ago. Little is left of what we once called the Ohio wilderness. Those areas that remain are something very special. Places where time seems to stop, where the senses come alive. Here in this natural world is a feeling of peace and tranquility, a spirit of adventure, a joy of discovery. Here we can imagine the Ohio that was, the Ohio of 2 centuries ago, the Ohio our forefathers knew. This was wild country then, in many ways hostile, but at the same time, a land of plenty. There were forests as far as the eye could see. Millions upon millions of acres were covered with trees. The land now known as Ohio was once part of one of the most extensive and magnificent forests on Earth. And here and there, in isolated patches, almost as if by accident, were smaller natural communities, areas of wonder and mystery, far removed from similar places. These were the last vestiges of an Ohio that was beginning to disappear even before the onslaught of civilization. And everywhere there was a wildness and a balance. This was the Ohio that greeted its first settlers, the vanguard of a new world, who saw a land of opportunities and obstacles, and who would show they could survive and tame the wilderness. Built a mighty civilization in the last 2 centuries, but at a far greater cost than can be determined in dollars and cents. Areas containing Ohio's original natural features grow more scarce each year. Animals once abundant are now most frequently seen in zoos, like exotic species of some foreign land. Our natural areas are becoming increasingly more valuable and more vulnerable. Many exist only because concerned citizens took the time to get involved, to care. Many of the early preservation attempts in Ohio were the result of private funding. Groups like the Nature Conservancy, a national nonprofit conservation organization, played an important role in keeping a number of fragile areas from falling victim to the saw, the plow, and the bulldozer. But in the mid-1960s, conservationists began to realize that more was needed. The loss of these areas was accelerating rapidly, and the push began for legislation. One of the people involved in that effort was Ralph Ramey, today director of Glen Helen Nature Preserve, a national natural landmark in western Ohio. As a member of the Ohio chapter of Nature Conservancy, Ramey was one of many Ohioans involved in the struggle to make people more aware of the need for a strong natural areas law. He looks back on that period with pride.
We were immediately joined by the Audubon societies around the state, by the Sierra Club, by the local organizations like the Toledo Naturalists Association, the Wheaton Club in Columbus, and other organizations interested in natural science, nature study, ornithology, and the like. And after working its way through the legislative process, it was passed and signed by the governor in June of 1970. Ohio today has probably the strongest natural areas law in the country. The Nature Conservancy, in a study that they did a couple of years ago for the federal government, held up Ohio's law as a model to be copied by others. And we continually get inquiries from states all over the country asking for copies of our legislation and asking how it works.
Under the law, the responsibility for establishing and managing the Natural Areas Program was given to the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, and today it plays an active role in the planning, inventory, study, acquisition, and dedication of nature preserves. The department also sets rules and regulations governing the use of preserves and works closely with the Ohio Natural Areas Council, a citizens' advisory body created by the Natural Areas Law. As a result of these efforts and the help of private citizens, the department has established a system of natural areas that will help ensure the survival of the state's natural heritage for future generations. Just what is this natural heritage? Well, it's many things. It's a beech maple climax forest which has never been cut, an inspiring remnant of the pristine wilderness of the American Midwest. It's a lake formed by the melting ice of a glacier, a sanctuary for migrating birds. It's a free-flowing stream, undisturbed by man. It's a prairie, a rare vestige of an Ohio that existed thousands of years ago when the climate turned harsh and dry. It's the hostile environment of a bog with its unusual Canadian plant life. It's a Black Hand sandstone gorge cut by the waters of a river forced to seek a new route when a glacier blocked its path. It's the wildness of a marsh, once so abundant and now so scarce. A remnant of Ohio's once vast black swamp with trees that were large even when the first settlers entered the state. It's the scenic beauty of unique geologic formations. Ohio's natural heritage is all of this and much more. But the preservation of natural areas is not without its critics. To some, preservation is merely a sentimental gesture serving no useful purpose. But the values of a nature preserve are many, and they're found in the nature of man. A nature preserve is not only a refuge for rare and endangered plants and animals, it's a refuge for us, a place where we can enjoy the simple pleasures of life, like the healthy exercise of a hike in the out-of-doors, as we discover the many wonders of the natural world.
Wrapped in all her beauty, Mother Nature is Ohio, and she gives us all her gifts to share and love. Out walking on that forest trail gets me back into Ohio, deeper than the clearest sky above. And a ring of tiny ripples shakes the pond as a watercolor twilight breaks the dawn. Ohio turns my head around, once again I'm homeward bound. This is where it's going down, 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 down. In all her beauty, Mother Nature is Ohio, and she gives us all her gifts to share and love.
A natural area is a living museum, and to an artist, it offers a wealth of subjects. His realistic illustrations have earned him recognition as one of Ohio's finest nature artists. But for Jim Glover, a nature preserve is not merely a place to work. It's something far more personal.
When you get out into a natural area and know that you're most likely the only guy there and probably will be the only one all day, all the senses begin to take things in. Your eyes see some things and sense some things that you don't ordinarily run across. You begin to smell some fragrances that are a natural part of the environment, a part of the habitat there. And I really, as much as anything, appreciated the outdoors and sort of the pristine, virgin appearance of a lot of these areas, just in really relating them to the Creator or whatever your beliefs happen to be. But I can just really see the hand of God in so many of the fantastic things that you can see. To me, that's really the key to doing artwork that's interesting. It becomes very cut and dried, very sterile when you sit at the desk and crank out half a dozen pictures. But when you've been out and seen a chipmunk chasing a butterfly or something, it's easy to put that into the artwork, and it comes alive to me.
What Jim Glover does with a pen and brush, Al Staffen does with a camera. He considers himself a naturalist first, a photographer second. His patience and his knowledge of his subjects have paid off with prize-winning pictures many published nationally. Staffen's expertise comes from decades of observing nature firsthand. And in that time, he's noted the passing of many areas now lost forever.
The whole movement's been needed long before it happened. There's no doubt about that. There's many areas a few years ago that were around, they're no longer around, or at least are not around in the same condition they were in. Personally, I'm very happy that we're getting some nice areas, and I wish we could get some more. I really enjoy it all. Enjoy the looking, hunting, trying to find specimens, and photography is secondary. This gives me an excuse to be there.
A natural area is a place where we can learn more about this planet we live on. A place where present and future scientists can search for answers to questions, where they can attempt to determine the natural order of the ecosystem and man's effect on his environment. Among the people using the preserves for research is Eric Metzler, an expert on moths and butterflies. For him, entomology is an exciting and fascinating hobby, but at the same time, his studies are helping to fill the void in our scientific knowledge. At preserves like Gehenna Woods, Metzler is demonstrating that even the smallest of life forms play an important role in maintaining the balance of nature.
I like to study the insects because they are an item that you can use to calculate the environment or to see what's going on in the environment, because they're all right there. You can find large numbers of them very quickly. The moths and the butterflies and all insects are, for the most part, dependent on the plant communities, to where they're going to be. And as the habitats change, the species are going to change considerably. But what I'm doing in Gehenna Woods right now, and also what we're doing in some of the other preserves, is to try to determine the occurrence of some of the rare animals, some that may even be endangered, and to see if they actually do occur. And if they do, that's just one more reason why it should be preserved.
We learn much from nature, and for people young and old, our natural areas provide unique classrooms and laboratories. At places like Cranberry Bog, a unique floating island composed entirely of sphagnum moss, the learning experience takes on new meaning. And naturalists like Guy Denning see this as a positive step in creating a greater appreciation of our natural world and its effect on our lives.
A natural area is an extremely valuable teaching tool because education can come alive. You can read about a bog in a textbook. You can study it in the classroom, but when you're here, you're actually here. You can walk on this boardwalk and step off onto the mat, which is like a giant sponge. It bounces. You know, all of a sudden it has meaning. These plants, the bog plants, the pitcher plant, the sundew, they're carnivorous. They actually eat insects. And the youngster here can not just look at a picture, but touch this thing. He can feel it. He can smell it. It becomes alive and becomes very meaningful to him.
The lessons to be learned are many, but they're seldom dull. For example, probably one of the most misunderstood and least appreciated animals on Earth is the snake. Even though most snakes are gentle and play an important role in maintaining the balance of nature, they've suffered greatly through human ignorance and superstition. But the snake is one of nature's most fascinating creatures. Take this fella, for instance, the hog-nosed snake. Though completely harmless, he puts on an act that has frightened the bravest of people. When first alarmed, this master of deceit coils, takes on a cobra-like appearance, hisses fiercely, and strikes violently. If this fails to scare off the intruder, the hog-nose rolls over on its back and plays dead. It's a brilliant job of performing.
Hey, just a minute there, buddy. Ain't they going a little too far? Come on over, pretty all far across. Now, who do you think you are? Just say that you dare anybody to cross the line that you've gone. Now, don't you think it's just a little too much? You gotta be putting me on. Yeah, you gotta be putting me on, baby. You gotta be putting me on. Sure, I'm coming on pretty all far across. You gotta be putting me on. Bring a hand to your fevered brow. I think it's my leg that you've been pulling. Well, what do you think of now? You're so slick in the art of deception. Need to game everybody's a pawn. But your act ain't total perfection. Baby, you just gotta be putting me on. Yeah, you gotta be putting me on. Baby, you gotta be putting me on. Now I'm coming on pretty all bar strong. You gotta be putting me on.
There's only one flaw in the act. If you place the snake on his stomach, he probably rolls over on his back again. You just can't convince a hognose that a dead snake shouldn't be on his back. Locked within our natural areas are secrets. Secrets which may hold the key to our very survival. Here, thriving in the wild, is life. A magnificent gene pool, largely untapped, of untold value in the future. Dr. David Stansbury is a biologist. His studies of mollusks in Ohio, particularly those known as naiads, show that an alarming number of species have become extinct in the last century. And Stansbury, who was the first chairman of Ohio's Natural Areas Council, believes every time a species becomes extinct, it ceases to be a resource. Its potential for good is gone forever, and mankind loses one more option.
The role that each species plays in nature is simply not completely known. In fact, in many instances, we have only the vaguest notion of what role they may play, or roles they may play. For example, if we had eliminated the mold penicillium when it was fashionable to eliminate all molds because molds were bad, we wouldn't have penicillin today. If we'd used an herbicide to get rid of foxglove, we wouldn't have digitalis. Now, I'm just naming a few things that we are familiar with. These are the ones that we've investigated, that we've found are valuable in some regard. But how many of them haven't we investigated? The answer is most of them. Now, I'm being perfectly selfish and looking at it from man's point of view. How can these things be a help to man on Earth? We don't know what our needs will be in the future. We may have needs tomorrow that we don't have today, that we didn't have yesterday.
But how do we save our priceless natural areas from destruction? It begins with people caring. This is Lake Catherine, an area in Jackson County rich in natural beauty with an outstanding cross-section of plant and animal life. The dedication of this area as a state nature preserve and wildlife sanctuary was made possible by land donations from two longtime business partners, Edwin A. Jones and James J. McKinney. It was their wish that this land remain undeveloped, unspoiled, and it is their gift to future generations to study, enjoy, and cherish. Why did they make this donation? Edwin Jones explains.
I think we've got to do it. If we want to preserve our natural beauty, this is just a perfect example of what should be done, is to set aside these areas, these natural areas, and keep them in their natural state. And after all, give the birds and the bees and the animals a chance, because we're fast cutting our state to pieces, and someday there won't be any place for those wildlife to go. And I think it behooves the state to continue this program and expand it, because there aren't too many places like this left.
There is still much to be done in Ohio. More areas must be identified and located before it's too late. There are two ways private land can become part of the state nature preserve system. It can be donated, as in the case of Lake Catherine, or it can be dedicated. Land dedicated as a preserve does not change ownership, but the private owner does agree to help protect and preserve the area. Under the law, when private land becomes a preserve, its owners can benefit from certain tax advantages. But their most satisfying and lasting reward will be the gratitude of the people of Ohio. However, just dedicating a natural area as a preserve does not make it one. Proper management and controls are needed. Our natural area programs and laws mean very little without the concern and cooperation of everyone. For these are not parks designed for masses of people. They're something far more fragile, delicate ecosystems which need the respect of their visitors to continue to survive. The natural areas movement in Ohio has grown from the dreams of a few to a reality. More and more people are discovering the need to save these fast disappearing places which provide a vital link to our past and potential solutions to the problems of the future. For a natural area is a lasting legacy, a gift to our children and our children's children and their children's children.